Are you stuck trying to decide if a Roth conversion is the right move for you? There's an important calculation even most advisors overlook, and it can be the difference between thousands in tax savings or giving a bonus to the IRS. So in this video, I'll reveal the hidden Roth conversion math that you need to know about and show you how to use it to turn your conversions into one of the smartest tax saving moves in retirement. First, I need to show you how one small calculation can turn Roth conversions from a coin flip into life-changing tax savings. Most retirees assume their taxes will go down once they stop working. But once required minimum distributions and Social Security start hitting at the same time, income spikes, and so do taxes. But by the time those higher taxes hit, it's already too late to fix them. That's why getting your tax plan right early in retirement is so important, because small mistakes can snowball into huge tax bills later on. But it's not always as simple as doing a Roth conversion and saving thousands in taxes. Let me show you how this played out for one couple who just retired. Mark and Diane are 65 with over $1 million saved in their IRAs. Like many smart savers, they thought Roth conversions would be their ticket to avoiding higher taxes in retirement. But when we ran the numbers, the results shocked them. They'd actually pay close to $30,000 more in taxes by doing a Roth conversion, not less. So what actually happened with their Roth strategy, and why didn't it save them from higher taxes? Their math wasn't wrong, but their assumptions were. Because as life changes, health, income, or one spouse passing, everything about the plan can change too. And that's exactly what they were worried about. Let me show you why. Although Diane's mom lived into her 90s, Mark's health wasn't perfect. He had recently beaten cancer, and the only thing he was worried about was making sure Diane was secure if something happened to him. So when we built their plan, we wanted to see what would happen if that risk became real. When we first ran their projections, we assumed they both lived long, healthy lives out to age 95. And when we added in Roth conversions, it actually increased their lifetime taxes. But now, if we adjust the plan so Diane's runs to age 95 and Mark's ends at 85, what happens with the Roth strategy? When we flip over to the tax page, you can see the strategy now saves them a little over $250,000 in taxes and helps protect Diane later on. Now, what if we want to be even more conservative? Let's go back and shorten Mark's timeline again, this time down to age 75. Back on the tax page, you can see the strategy becomes even stronger, saving them nearly $285,000 in lifetime taxes. So the longer Diane is on her own, the more taxes start to work against her. And this is one of the biggest blind spots in retirement planning, what we call the widow's trap. The widow's trap happens when the death of one spouse leaves a survivor with a tax mess they never saw coming. Let me show you why it happens and how costly it can be for the survivor. When the IRS decides income taxes, think about it like layers of a cake. The bottom layer is taxed at 10%. That's this blue line here. And the next layer on top is taxed at 12%, shown in green, and then 22%, 24%, and so on. Now, when we add in Mark and Diane's income, you can see that right now, most of their income falls into those bottom layers, the 10% and 12% brackets. But look at this drop right here. This is what happens if Mark passes away at 75. The brackets for a married couple are twice as wide as they are for a single filer. So after Mark passes, the top of the 12% bracket shrinks from about $121,000 down to just over $60,000. And that's where things change. Because now, when we add their income in, it starts spilling into the 22 and 24% brackets later on. But how big of a difference does that actually make? Let's switch over to show what that means in real dollars. When they're both around in their early 70s, they're paying a little over $13,000 in federal taxes. But once Mark passes, look at this jump. Just a couple of years later, Diane's paying almost $30,000 a year in taxes. That same income quickly turns into more than double the tax bill. But the problem doesn't stop there. In their early 70s, taxes stayed pretty steady, around $13,000 a year. But as Diane gets older, watch how this line starts to climb. By the time she's in her 90s, her tax bill has exploded to over $60,000 per year. And the thing is, it's not spending or inflation driving those taxes up so high. So what is it? If we go back to their income projection, you can see that by her 90s, Diane's total income grows to over $300,000 a year. And I know what you might be thinking, what is a 92-year-old possibly spending $300,000 a year on? The truth is, she's not. Most of that income is money she's forced to take out of her retirement accounts through required minimum distributions, or RMDs. Starting at age 75, the IRS makes you take out a bigger and bigger portion of your pre-tax accounts every year, whether you need it or not. And remember, after Mark passes, she doesn't just have her own RMDs. She inherits his too. By the time she's 93, she's forced to withdraw over $200,000 from her IRAs each year. And when you stack these massive withdrawals on top of Social Security and any other income, that's how her taxes snowball into that $60,000 a year range. So now that you've seen the huge amount of damage the widow's trap can do to your tax bill, how big of an effect do Roth conversions really have when it comes to solving this problem? Let's go back to what's causing most of the damage, those required minimum distributions. But this time, let's add in that same Roth strategy we looked at earlier, where they spend the first part of retirement converting up to the 22% bracket. Watch what happens. Those massive withdrawals that used to be over $200,000 a year shrink to less than $40,000. And cutting those RMDs down is what led to that over $250,000 in lifetime tax savings we saw earlier. But here's the best part. That money doesn't disappear. It's just coming out on their terms instead of the government's. By converting it to Roth now, it can grow completely tax-free for the rest of the plan. And the IRS can't force them to pull it out later. And that leads us to the next hidden calculation, one that goes beyond your lifetime taxes and into something even more lasting. For Mark and Diane, protecting each other came first. But once that was accomplished, their focus shifted to leaving a legacy. Both had inherited money from their parents, and it made a massive difference when they needed it most. They wanted to do the same for their kids. So when we looked at Roth conversions, we didn't just focus on the impact to them. We wanted to plan for what their kids would actually receive. When we first ran their base plan, both living to 95 and converting up to the 22% bracket, it showed they'd pay about $30,000 more in lifetime taxes with the Roth strategy. But take a look at this number, right above lifetime taxes paid, tax-adjusted ending assets. That's what their kids actually receive after taxes. And once you factor that in, you start to see the Roth strategy in a completely different light. By paying that extra $30,000 now, it leaves their heirs with nearly $200,000 more after taxes. As bad as it might feel to pay $30,000 more today, leaving your kids with almost 7 times that is an incredible trade-off. And here's where the numbers really start to shift. Our first run assumed their kids would pay taxes on their inheritance at the 15% bracket. But that's not realistic. Both kids are high earners living in states with income tax, so they're already paying far more. And here's what most people forget about inheriting retirement accounts. When you inherit an IRA, every dollar you withdraw is taxed just like a paycheck. Ordinary income that stacks right on top of what you already earn. So if you're already in the 22 or 24% bracket, those inherited dollars could easily be taxed at 30% or more once you add state taxes on top. So let's adjust that assumption. If their kids are in a 25% bracket instead of 15, that same $30,000 in extra taxes now adds over $350,000 more to their inheritance. And if we bump that up even higher to 35%, they'd pass on over $500,000 more. That's why understanding the hidden Roth math matters. It's not just about saving taxes today. It's about giving more to the people you love tomorrow. Now, there's one last piece to this story. And if you're not convinced about the power of Roth conversions yet, this might be the one that does it. Under current law, when your kids inherit your IRA, they can't just let it grow forever. They have to withdraw the entire balance and pay the taxes within 10 years. And because most people inherit money during their peak earning years, that tax bill hits at the absolute worst time. So if Mark and Diane pass on a $500,000 IRA, their kids would likely lose a large portion of it to taxes, even if they let it grow for a few years first. But now, imagine that same $500,000 in a Roth IRA. Their kids still have to withdraw it within 10 years, but this time, every dollar is tax-free. They could leave it invested for the full decade, and if it doubles to $1 million, they wouldn't owe a single dollar in taxes on that money. That kind of growth can change a family's future, and it's not even part of the earlier tax savings math. So if paying an extra $30,000 in taxes today could let you pass on an extra $1 million tax-free to your family tomorrow, would you do it? Not everyone gets that chance to give their kids that kind of gift, but when you do, the right strategy can make all the difference. So now you know the hidden Roth conversion math that turns what looks like a simple tax decision into a long-term wealth strategy. But here's the tricky part. Knowing the math is one thing. Figuring out if and when a Roth conversion actually makes sense for you is a completely different challenge. And if you get this wrong, you could go from massive tax savings to erasing over $1 million in wealth. Watch this next. I'll show you exactly how that can happen and the one strategy you can use to make sure it doesn't.